Here is a world of communication, bringing together all people in a new era of understanding.
Elektrischer Reporter.
Das World Wide Web, liebe Zuschauer daheim an den Empfangsgeräten oder von wo auch immer Sie uns gerade zusehen. Das World Wide Web wurde vor gar nicht allzu langer Zeit von einem britischen Informatiker an einem Schweizer Forschungsinstitut entwickelt und ist mithin eine durch und durch europäische Erfindung. Dieses kleine Faktoid vergisst man recht gerne und schnell, kein Wunder eigentlich, nahmen doch seitdem sämtliche wichtigen Webentwicklungen ihren Ursprung in den USA, während der alte Kontinent sich auf das verlegte, was man in der Offline-Welt gerne den Asiaten vorwirft. Kopieren, 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 kopieren. Martin Varsavsky, Gründer der WLAN-Community FON, hat unternehmerische Erfahrungen auf beiden Seiten des Atlantiks gesammelt und daran lässt er uns nun ein wenig teilhaben.
I was born in Argentina and that was 46 years ago. I spent more or less a third of my life in Argentina, a third in the States, and a third in Spain. I love Spain. Now, regarding my life, I had a pretty difficult childhood because I grew up during the military dictatorship of Videla, a fascist dictatorship. Family members were killed, and we had to flee Argentina in order to avoid getting killed. The Argentine dictatorship was killing people for two reasons, which we unfortunately fit both, which was being intellectuals and being Jewish, two things they didn't like. And then I arrived in the States with my father, who was a physicist and a professor, and I went to school in the States, NYU, Columbia University, started my businesses in the States, and after that I moved to Europe. And I've started 7 businesses for the last 20 years or so. 6 went well, 1 didn't. And that's what I do. I build companies. Well, I think the Spain is a fantastic country for startups because there's a lack of competition for key employees. There's a very highly educated population, but there aren't too many tech startups. So when Google and Skype invested with us and they asked us to move to Silicon Valley, we rejected the idea because we thought that in Silicon Valley we would be one more startup, and in Spain we are the startup to work for.
I remember Sergey from Google, when they finally decided to invest with us, he says to me, but of course you're moving to Silicon Valley, right? And I said, no, Sergey, we're staying in Madrid. Really? He says, can you name one global technology company that comes out of Madrid? I said, FON, you know.
Well, I've started companies in the States and I've started companies in Europe. And I think there's a lot of differences. But if I had to say one, and the spirit of the company is that maybe the Americans are overconfident, but the Europeans have a lot to do to believe in themselves. There's a general lack of confidence of Europeans in themselves, and the most optimistic ones end up moving to America. And I don't like that. I prefer that we do very well in Europe. There used to be no VC money in Europe, but that is changing. There's great VC firms here in Europe, like our partners Index Ventures, who's undoubtedly the best VC in Europe. They've invested in other European companies like Skype, our partners at FON. So I think the atmosphere is changing in Europe. It's more confident. And what Europe has is the best educated people in the world. So I think for the internet, which is what I do, Europe is fantastic because also Europe is more equitable. More people have a chance to access the internet. In America, there's an amazing elite universities, but then the rest of the population is less educated on the average. When you do an internet company, you don't want to just cater to the elite. You want that to have a massive product like ya.com, the company I built in Spain, and you want this massive product to reach most of the population, and for that Europe is better. I don't think so. Certainly FON is not. We have a very original idea that nobody has yet copied in an insignificant way. And that's why we were the first European investment of Google and the first European investment of Sequoia, which is the most successful venture capital firm. So Sequoia had to come to Spain to invest with us. So I don't think that's true of all the situations, but it's unfortunately true of a lot of them. And I think that's because European education encourages students to agree with professors, while American education encourages students to disagree with professors. Not all the time, but there's much more tolerance for disagreement, and sort of like, that's your view, this is my view, and we're all entitled to a view, and I think that's great. And I hope that Europeans stop teaching young people that the only way to do well in an exam is to copy what the professor says. And that, translated into adulthood, makes great managers who copy what the professors say, which are in America, and we have to end that. I think that the problem with big companies in Europe in particular is that they believe that they will stay big if they act in a monopoly fashion. And many of them tend to either block new initiatives or co-opt them in a way where they kill the enthusiasm, you know. I think in that sense we have to learn a lot from the American companies, the big ones, who buy, for example, Google buys YouTube, but YouTube keeps operating in the same place with the same management, or Flickr was bought by Yahoo, but it's still Flickr. And I mean, when Deutsche Telekom bought my company, ja.com, I had to personally plead with Ron Sommer to please not call it T-Online, because T-Online means nothing for the Spaniards and ja.com means a lot for the Spaniards. So it's a problem. It's a question of identity, that European companies who are big, like big European companies, they think their identity should encompass everything else they do, and they don't realize that by doing that they take away the spirit of startups. Startups have to keep their identity. Well, I think the worst thing about the internet is that it reaches less than a sixth of the global population. That's by far the worst thing about it. I think the best thing about it is that those who the internet reaches tend to develop and do better in whatever they're trying to do, whether it's searching, finding things, learning to program, educating themselves, like in the website we built in Argentina, Educar, and just education, community, communications, for a lot of things. So I think the future of the internet, the biggest challenge for the future of the internet is inclusion. It's including the 5/6 of the planet who are not on the internet, and especially because those who are leaping ahead. And so the worst thing about the internet is that nobody seems to have made a serious strategy to include the rest of the world, and the rest of the world is most of the world.
おはようございます。今日は仕事に行きます。週末はみんなで、家族で温泉に行きました。僕は最近、1週間6日。
Vielleicht kann dem Mann geholfen werden. Unter Umständen ist Web 2.0 ja das.
S01E21, crossmediale Konvergenz, soziale Software integriert, Content managed und konsumiert. Netz 2.0, asynchron, Aggregation der Kommunikation, barrierefreie Synergie, Schnittstelle mit Ironie. Netz 2.0, Intelligenz, crossmediale Konvergenz, soziale Software integriert, Content managed und konsumiert. Netz 2.0, asynchron, Aggregation der Kommunikation, barrierefreie Synergie, Schnittstelle mit Ironie.
Vielen Dank. Das, liebe Zuschauer, war es auch schon wieder für heute. Ich verabschiede mich und wünsche Ihnen eine inspirierte Woche. Bleiben Sie uns gewogen und schalten Sie auch das nächste Mal wieder ein. Bis dahin bleibe ich Ihr elektrischer Reporter.
Handelsblatt. Substanz entscheidet.
Um den Fluss des eigenen Wachstums in Gang zu halten, sollte Bemerkenswertes so formuliert werden, dass es eine Brücke zu einer Verständnisebene schlägt, die man eigentlich noch nicht bewohnt.
Lesen Sie das Handelsblatt 4 Wochen zum Vorzugspreis und sparen Sie über 30%. Jetzt bestellen auf handelsblatt.com.